As part of our tradition here at Commons for Holy Week, we will be setting up the Stations of the Cross. And so on Tuesday and Wednesday this week, from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., you are invited to come into the church to walk through the stations. We have a booklet that we've prepared that will walk you through these different images and the different moments in Jesus' life so that you can reflect and pray and prepare yourself for Easter. But some of us are not particularly familiar with the tradition of the Stations of the Cross, and so I wanted to give you a little bit of background about where this comes from. And interestingly enough, it goes back about 1,000 years. About 1,000 years ago, Christians began a tradition of doing a pilgrimage in the Holy Lands. They would travel to Palestine and to Israel and walk through the spaces and the places where it was believed that Jesus had experienced his last moments here on earth. And this became an incredibly meaningful and powerful experience, and many people still do that today. And then about 400 or 500 years later, Franciscan monks and priests began trying to take that experience and make it accessible to more and more people. And this is where the Stations of the Cross was really developed. This was an attempt to create stations, paintings, sculptures, carvings of those last moments of Jesus and set them up in spaces where people could experience them without having to travel to the Holy Land if they couldn't. And so these stations were based on the last moments of Jesus' life. From what we understand, the original stations were about 7 different stations based on scripture that depicted Jesus' last moments. Added to that were other stations. The traditional set that developed was 14 stations, and about half of those were sort of imaginative retellings of what it could have been like in Jesus' final days that weren't directly taken from Scripture. And this set of 14 images then became part of the tradition. Now, interestingly enough, a couple of years ago, Pope Benedict commissioned and approved a new set of stations that were based directly on scriptural moments in Jesus' life. And that is actually where the set that we use here at Commons comes from. All of the images that you're going to walk through when you come into the church are based on specific scriptures that are drawn from the Gospels and depict Jesus' last moments. And so as you walk through, you'll see an image. There will be a scripture in the booklet to read and a prayer to reflect on and guide you through these last moments of Jesus' life. Now, interestingly, one of the things that you will notice when you walk through the stations is that the final station is Jesus' body being laid in the tomb. There are many different variations of the Stations of the Cross, and some of them do end with Jesus' resurrection. But traditionally, the stations end with Jesus in the tomb. And the reason for this is that these stations are leading us towards Easter, towards Good Friday. And so part of that experience is actually learning how to sit with the tension and the conflict of what it means to be a follower of Christ here in this world. And so as much as possible during Holy Week, leading up to Good Friday, and even coming out of Good Friday, we want to put ourselves into the shoes of his followers, his disciples, his friends, and his family who saw him crucified, dead, and buried. We want to be able to learn how to sit with that tension, how to live with that conflict, and how to experience that in our lives, because we know that as followers, we're going to experience all of that doubt and confusion on a regular basis in life, but also we know that to get to Easter Sunday and to really experience the overwhelming joy and celebration of resurrection, we need to experience the pain and the loss and the depths of despair that come with death. And so when you leave the Stations of the Cross, it will leave on a down note, and that's okay. It's okay to sit with that. It's okay to be confused by that. It's okay, Good Friday, to know that the story is incomplete, but we are living in that tension right now.